وبعد.
Brothers in the other side can please either make it in or, inshallah, kindly keep it down. Thank you. Sallallahu alayka ya Rasulallah. Sallallahu alayk ya Aba Abdillah. Ya rahmatallahi al-wasi'a wa ya باب نجاة الأمة يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. قال مولانا أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام إذا أملقتم فتاجروا مع الله بالصدقة. صدق مولانا أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام. My respected brothers and sisters in Islam, I bid you all Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We make a living by what we get, and we make a life by what we give. Winston Churchill. Giving is really a universal quality that's respected in every community, in every society. You go to, no one will tell you giving is something bad. And if they do, they need to have a very good explanation. Charity, being a philanthropist, being altruistic in nature is a good thing. Giving denotes positive qualities. Giving is good, it's positive. Yet if you really were to look at giving, it's a loss. You have $10, you give them away, go to Africa, go to China, it really doesn't matter where you go. You've just lost $10. Charity is a loss. Giving money is a loss. Giving somebody something that you have, whether it be out of kindness, you may get a smile back, yet you just lost money or whatever it is that you gave. You just lost something, you have less of it. Yet when you come to the Quran and you look into what Islam has to say about giving, it's always spoken in a good way. Generosity is something excellent. Our sixth Imam alayhi salam, he says great things about generosity. He mentions it, denoting to the notion that it's an elite quality. Not everybody has it. He even says along the lines of, it's the quality of the prophets, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhim ajma'een. Therefore, over here, questions need to be asked. Why is my religion encouraging me to give if giving at the end of the day is a loss? Is Islam a money laundering system that just wants my money? Some have mentioned points about Scientology being a money laundering system. Takes money. Is Islam asking me to just come and look at how many fiqhi issues are based on giving? Khums, giving. Zakat, giving. Allah, you don't need them, I may need them. Yet I can't keep them, and you request them. Allah is ghani. Allah is in need of anything. Allah is ghani an al-alameen. Doesn't need these dollars that I give him. He's rich, self-sufficient, ghani, however you want to look at it. Allah, why do you ask me for these things? You don't need them, I do. Yet He asks for them. Over here, there's something to be looked at. Why is Allah Azza wa Jal asking me to give? Is it because He needs it? Wal-'ayadhu billah, Allah far from being a needy entity. We are in need of Him. Yet why? Islam, you come and you look at, for example, morally, it's emphasized upon. I'll come to certain points. Jurisprudentially, I already mentioned to you, fiqh, zakat, and khums. I need to give 20% of my wealth, and maraja are going to detail as to what I need to give, what things. This is not a fiqh discussion today. Zakat, and so on and so forth. Then you look at it from a moral perspective, and you look at the emphasis of Islam on notions like generosity, sakha. Allah Azza wa, for example, I'll give you an example. They tell us that Ibn Abbas, one day, he narrates, Ibn Abbas says that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, he would one day give Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam 300 coins. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen said, I'm going to do something that indeed will make Allah Azza wa Jal happy with these coins that the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has just given me. What does the Imam do? He walks out one day after Salat al-Isha and he sees a lady. He says, let me give her 100 coins of these 300 that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has just given me. He gives her the 100 coins. Next day, commotion is in the community. What did Ali ibn Abi Talib do? He gave money to an adulteress. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, this man who has come with a book that speaks ill of adultery, is now giving money to adulteresses. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he feels a sense of pain, a sense of hurt. He says, I need to make up. Next day, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam says, after Salat al-Isha, I'm going to give 100 coins to make up for what happened yesterday. Of course, the intention of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam was unbelievably great intentions, yet this is the heart that Ali ibn Abi Talib had. He said, I must do something extra. What does he do? he sees a man and he gives him 100 coins. Next day, commotion arises. Ali ibn Abi Talib is sponsoring thieves. He just gave a thief money. Imam Amir al-Mu'minin receives the news. He says, I gave money to a thief. I must make up. Next day, Imam Amir al-Mu'minin, after Salat al-Isha, he sees somebody. He says, I need to make up. I need to give somebody 100 coins to make up for what I did for the previous 2 days. What does he see? He sees another man. He gives him money. Next day, commotion is filled in the community. Ali ibn Abi Talib is giving money to wealthy men. There are poor in the community, and Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam is going and distributing money which could be given to the poor, which he's giving to the wealthy. Imam Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam feels regret. Jibreel comes to Rasulullah. He tells him of certain things. Rasulullah would come to Ali ibn Abi Talib. He tells him, Ya Ali, there's no need for you to feel any pain. He would tell him, why? Ya Rasulullah. The story goes along these lines, be it the thief first or the wealthy man. What does the moral say? He tells him, don't feel any pain. There's no reason for you to feel any regret. He would tell him, why, Ya Rasulullah? I've given money to an adulteress. I've given money to a thief. I've given money to a man who is wealthy, Ya Rasulullah. I must feel pain. He tells him, no, Ya Ali. Jibreel came and gave me unbelievably great news. He would tell him, Ya Rasulullah, tell me, what are the news? He would tell him, the first time you gave money to an adulteress, she went back home and she repented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the barakah of that money that you gave her, Ya Amir al-Mu'minin. He told him, what else, Ya Rasulullah? He would say the second, or he would tell him, the thief that you gave money to, he went back home and he told himself that I've had no money. Now Ali ibn Abi Talib gave me money. He used it to do positive tijara, and through that he became a reformed man. He told me, Ya Rasulullah, how about the wealthy man? He would tell him of the first incident. He would also tell him of the second incident. And amongst those three, he would also mention the wealthy man. He would tell him, the wealthy man, he went back home and he said, Ali ibn Abi Talib has nothing. The man is poor. The man, for goodness sake, he himself is in need of money. He gave me money. The man was inspired to change his ways through the money of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. In other words, these acts of generosity of Ahlul Bayt alayhum salam are very much emphasized in Islam, emphasized in the religion. Giving, ata, generosity, jurisprudentially, zakat, khums, for example. Why is it that God is always asking me to give? All of these questions, we find vivid answers when we come to wisdom number 255 of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam in Nahj al-Balagha. And if we were to listen to these words carefully, 5 words of the Imam alayhi salam only, if we were to pay attention to these words of the Imam alayhi salam, we begin to realize why giving, or at least we can say one of the reasons, and an unbelievable reason, why giving is so much emphasized in the religion of Allah Azza wa Jal. Imam Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam comes and says, إِذَا أَمْلَقْتُمْ فَتَاجِرُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ بِالصَّدَقَةِ. What does the Imam say? He says, إِذَا أَمْلَقْتُمْ, if you become poor, do tijara with Allah by giving charity. I'm sorry, Ya Ali ibn Abi Talib, could you repeat that one more time? Tajiru ma'allahi bis sadaqah. Do tijara with Allah through giving. Imam, I'm poor. I need money. What do you mean give my money away? Do tijara with Allah by giving sadaqah. My bank account is suffering, Ya Ali ibn Abi Talib. You're telling me to go and take out the few dollars that I have left and I'm living off and give them? Where does this make sense logically? Go and tell any poor person, you want money? He'll tell you, of course I do. Tell him, give your money away. He'll laugh. It's not a logical philosophy. And this is the point. It is not a logical philosophy. It's a spiritual one. Logically, this makes no sense. I need give. Unless if you're working with interest. For the most part, this notion does not hold much weight logically, rationally. I need. Therefore you want me to give? Where does this make sense, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen? You see, when you look at human logic and divine logic, as some have mentioned, this begins to make sense. In the book of man, this makes zero sense. Yet you and I as Muslims, as ones who place God as an integral entity and factor and pivot point in our life and in our existence, we don't only look at the book of man, what insan has to say. What did so-and-so philosopher say in regards to certain things? What did this lawmaker say? What did this politician say? Yes, we respect the law of the land. Yet we have another book, which is called the book of God, God's rules. Unfortunately, a lot of times, people, when they mix into such societies, they supplant God's rules for man's rules. And to the extent that they become victims of what man tells them to do, sacrificing what Allah Azza wa Jal told them to do. And over here, this is where principle is lost. He'll do whatever he has to do to make it in this society. You tell him, my brother, this is haram. You're not allowed to do this. Brother, the life that we live in, I have to shake her hand. Otherwise, could you imagine, the deal would be ruined if I don't shake that hand. In business, some have mentioned graduation. She's giving me the degree. You expect me not to extend my hand? I have to. We become what? We begin to not only do them, we begin to defend them. In this life, it's so difficult. You have to listen to music. Are you serious? Music? Me without music? I'd rather be shot in the head and besides you taking away my Drake headphones. What kind of headphones? Drake headphones. If you take them away, it's almost as if you're taking my soul away. You're taking my ruh. Please, I don't want this life anymore without this car. I remember previously hearing a story of that one guy who, when he first bought, I believe it was a Mercedes, 2 days he slept in the Mercedes. The first 2 days he slept inside of the Mercedes. An attachment. Not only do we do haram, but we'll begin to defend haram. You'll see certain people mention a certain name of a celebrity, of an athlete. He'll defend him. And all I want you to do is sit on the sidelines and look at his emotions. Look how passionate he gets. Look at how he starts to jump. He starts to give you statistics. Tell him, stop right there. Tell me 3 incidents about the life of Imam al-Hadi, alayhi salam. Inshallah, brother, I'll get back to you tomorrow. But let's continue about so-and-so athlete. An attachment. Now, it's not bad to build attachments with such individuals. But the problem is that we begin to become shadows of those individuals, right? Because in a human being's life, he may look up to 2 kinds of people. Somebody which he knows on a personal level, personally, and then somebody which he knows digitally, online. He looks at such a human being, an athlete, a celebrity. The sad part is when the digital influence has more of an effect on the personal influence. The father says something, yes, I know my dad says this, but that digital influence is too strong. My dad told me not to dress in this specific way, but the way so-and-so dresses, it's so attractive, I have to do it. The digital influence begins to have a bigger effect than the personal influence. Islam says there is the man of the book of society, it exists. The book of man. Yet Islam also says there's a book of God, spirituality. 72 verses 30,000 makes zero sense in the book of logic, brothers and sisters. Makes no sense whatsoever. 313 verses, some have said around the lines of triple the amount, such as Rasulullah in the battle of Badr. Logically, zero sense. Doesn't hold weight. A man to detach a door, which 40 Jewish men seized to detach, it holds zero sense, brothers and sisters. Logically, rationally, however you want to look at it, besides the spiritual world, unless that man was on some kind of pills which we don't know about, this does not make any kind of sense. And that's the point. It doesn't make sense. Spiritually is where it begins to hold weight. And we've all heard that incident where Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, after the battle, Allahumma salli. After the battle of Khaybar, they would come to him, they would see Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam struggling to break that hard piece of bread, to where they would tell him, Ya Ali, anta alladhi qala'ta baba Khaybar. You are the one who detached the door of Khaybar, and now you're struggling to break a hard piece of bread. Look at how logic world and spiritual world tend to conflict. They came in having a logical mentality. Door, 40 men, you did it. Now, piece of bread, you can't do it. Logically, there's some, as I say, fiction. Imam Yarmun alayhi salam would tell them that don't be victims of the logical world. There's another world. It's sad that in many of people's lives, the spiritual world plays little, if any, factor. What would the Imam alayhi salam say? He would make the famous lines to which he would say, قَلَعْتُ بَابَ خَيْبَرْ لَيْسَ بِقُوَّةٍ جَسَدِيَّةٍ بَلْ بِقُوَّةٍ رَوْحَانِيَّةٍ. He would say, I didn't detach the door of Khaybar through physical strength, I detached the door of Khaybar through spiritual strength. What is the Imam saying? He's saying there's another world. Don't disregard that world. What we do as Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam is because of our connection with the spiritual world. Therefore, in this kind of mentality, logically, giving doesn't make sense if you want to gain. Yet the Imam alayhi salam, he comes and he says, إِذَا أَمْلَقْتُمْ فَتَاجِرُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ بِالصَّدَقَةِ. If you are poor, if you're facing poverty, if you become poor, then do tijara. What is tijara? Transaction, a loan, a deal, tijara. Many are good at doing deals with man and man. Imam alayhi salam is saying man and God. There's a sense of tijara. There's something going on here. There's a deal you need to make. How, ya Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen? Bis sadaqah, by giving. Giving is a loss. Only when God is put in the picture, it becomes a gain. Are you with me? Giving is always a loss. You give somebody something, you'll get a smile back, but you've lost money, whether you give it here or you give it in some other world. Yet put that third element in the picture, the giver, the receiver, and the overlooker, Allah Azza wa Jal, it becomes a gain. Why? Because when it's given for the sake of Him, Allah Azza wa Jal is far from a Lord who has something given for His sake and He doesn't return it. And He doesn't return it equally. You see, when you go to anthropology, they'll tell you there are 3 different kinds of reciprocity. General reciprocity, is the first one. What happens in general reciprocity? You go to someone, you deal with something, or for example, he gives you a haircut, for example. How much are you going to give him back? No one knows. It's very Iraqi style, right? How much is the haircut? Bkefek. It's your choice. What do you mean it's my choice? It's your choice. I need to know how much is the haircut. He'll tell you, wallah, whatever you like. I tell, look, it's up to me. I'll leave the store right now. I won't give you anything. But it's very general reciprocity. There's no conditions. You don't work with anything. You live off kindness and protocol, and in Farsi they call it, it's a lot of ta'aruf. General reciprocity. Our relationship with Allah, is it general? No. There are things we know. I give, I receive. And if I don't know what I'm going to receive, it's not because Allah hasn't told me. It's because He hasn't specified how much I'm going to give, because it's too big of what He's going to give me. General reciprocity. Number two, equal. I know I give you this much money, I'm going to receive this product. I give you my services, you're going to give me this much money. It's a very equal. Then you have that which is negative, right? You give somebody a service, he gives you less than what you deserve. A relationship with Allah, tajiru ma'allah bis-sadaqa, do tijara with Allah, tijara alone, a deal. However you want to look at it. Bis-sadaqa. Allah, what are you going to give me back? Do you give me how much I give you? No. Take one step towards me. I'll take how many towards you? 10. One step towards him. He takes 10 towards me. Relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it negative? No. Is it general? No. Is it balanced? No. It's a positive. This is where anthropologists have failed. They didn't include the positive because there's no such philosophy in Western civilization. You give somebody something and he gives you more than you deserve. And if he does, he has a motive. There's something in his mind. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, one step, I take 10 towards you. To just come to the Holy Quran and see what Allah Azza wa Jal has to say about ata'. وَمَا كَانَ عَطَاءُ رَبِّكَ مَحْظُورًا. Allah Azza wa Jal says, the ata', the gift of your Lord it was not restricted. وَمَا كَانَ عَطَاءُ رَبِّكَ مَحْظُورًا. When I do tijara with Allah, what do I receive? Look at the verse. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, hal adullukum ala tijara tunjikum min adhabin alim, tu'minuna billahi wa rasulihi, wa tujahiduna fi sabilillahi bi amwalikum wa anfusikum. Allah Azza wa Jal tells us along these lines, O you who believe, should I tell you about a tijara, a deal? Tunjikum min adhabin alim. It saves you from a severe punishment. What should I do, Ya Allah? I give my wealth, I give myself. What are you going to give me in return, Ya Allah? Jannah. That in itself is enough. I give him myself, which is what? A temporary existence. He gives me something permanent. Jannah. Where does this make sense? وَمَا كَانَ عَطَاءُ رَبِّكَ مَحْظُورًا. The gift of your Lord was not restricted. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, give it for my sake. Then and only then would it be a gain. It would be a win. Now it makes sense when you come to Karbala. The Imam alayhi salam, he gives himself. Some may say he committed suicide. Imam alayhi salam, if Allah wasn't in the picture, it's the definition of suicide. If God was not in the picture, that's the definition of suicide. Yet Imam alayhi salam, he tells us what he has in mind. He says, لَقَدْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ أَن يَرَانِ قَتِيلًا. Allahu Akbar. He says, Allah wills to see me a martyr. He's putting Allah in the picture. وَلَقَدْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَرَاهُنَّ سَبَايَا. Allah wishes to see them taken as prisoners of war. Allah is in the picture. What else does the Imam say? He says, قُلْ إِنْ كَانَ دِينُ مُحَمَّدٍ لَمْ يَسْتَقِمْ إِلَّا بِقَتْلِي يَا سُيُوفْ خُذِينِي. He says, if the religion of Muhammad, there is a religious element in the picture. If the religion of Muhammad would not become upright except with my death, O swords, take me away. Imam gave himself, Allah gave him millions who are walking right now to the shrine of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. Some may have said the hijab of Zainab was ripped off. Today there are millions who represent the hijab of Zainab alayhi salam. That his neck was given. Today there are millions ready to give their necks for Aba Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. This whole philosophy is manifested in Arba'een. We're coming to remember Arba'een. He gave. What did Allah give him? If you want to know who won on the 10th of Muharram, 61 AH, who was victorious, just look at these days coming up. Those who are flocking towards the grave of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, what is their motto? What do they say? Imam gave his limbs. What do they say? They say, لو قطعوا أرجلنا واليدين نأتيك زحفا سيدي يا حسين. Yes. They say, if they cut our limbs, if they cut our arms and our legs, we come crawling to you, our master Hussein. That's Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. He gave his limbs. There are millions ready to give their limbs for the Imam alayhi salam. Wasn't a loss. Those who come and say, قَدْ أَخْطَأَ الْحُسَيْنِ, Hussein was wrong. Today you'll see people, he comes and he has the audacity to say such things like, Hussein was wrong, غَفَرَ اللَّهُ لِلْجَمِيعِ. May Allah, it was a bad move, in other words. It was political, it was a bad move, it was a mistake. We say it was a mistake. Then you don't understand spiritual philosophy if you think it was a mistake. You don't understand the spiritual world if you think it was a mistake. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. لَقَدْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَرَاهُنَّ سَبَايَا. Sabaya, captive, prisoners of war, however you want to look at it. That's why when you come to Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam, this philosophy is manifested the best. What do we call Abu Fadl? Abu al-Fadl, the father of generosity, virtue, however you want to look at it. The man he manifested generosity. Why, brothers and sisters? I'll ask you. The Imam, or Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam, always correlated with generosity. Look at how he manifests this philosophy. He says, I'll give one arm. A typical human being would say, that's enough. I've been hurt, let me retreat. Imam says, I didn't lose my arm. I lose if I don't give the second arm. That's a loss in the eyes of Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. That's why he says, Wallahi in qata'tumu yamini inni uhami abadan an dini wa an imam sadiq al-yaqini najl al-nabiy al-tahir al-amini. Imam would continue. Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam, the brother of the Imam alayhi salam. He's saying, it's not a loss. You cut one arm, I'm going to continue. Because the true loss, I remember Aisha, she would come, Rasulullah would one day come to her and he would tell her to sacrifice a certain type of an animal. Right? He would come and he would ask her. He would say, what has left from the sheep? A sheep he would give to Aisha to sacrifice. He would say, what was left from the sheep? She would say, Ya Rasulullah, everything but the shoulder of the sheep. What would the Rasulullah say? He would say, no, everything has stayed except for the shoulder of the sheep. Let's try to digest the words of Rasulullah He would say, everything has stayed except that which has really stayed physically. The shoulder is the only thing that did not stay. Ya Rasulullah, the shoulder is still there physically. He's saying, no, that which was given is what stays. And that which stays is the real loss. That's the loss. What does the verse of Allah Azza wa Jalla say? He says, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتٍ بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. Don't consider those who die for the sake of Allah, fi sabilillah, in the path of Allah, as dead, right? No, they aren't dead. Ahya, they're alive. You want to get rid of Sheikh Nimr, kill him. But that's when he'll be born. You want to kill Imam Hussein alayhi salam, do what you have to do. We curse you and we have great problems, yet do it. Yet the Imam would be born on the 10th of Muharram. Imam Hussein alayhi salam didn't die on the 10th of Muharram. The birth of Sayyid al-Shuhada was on the 10th of Muharram. This is when the Imam was born. Because when God is in the picture, the more you attack something, the more you elevate it, in essence. That's why you'll see a alim is born when he dies, right? An alim, his birth is when he dies. Shaheed al-Sadr, when he was killed, that was the true birth of Shaheed Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr. Yet the ignorant person, he dies when he's born, right? The alim, he's born when he dies. The ignorant person, when he's born, a dead human being has just come into existence, because a dead person, a live human being, he has a brain, right? What differentiates a live human being from a dead human being? A live human being, he has rationale, he still can think, he still can process, he still can decide. A dead human being, he's stripped of the power to think, power to calculate, power to perceive. Therefore, when you are alive, yet mentally you're gone, spiritually you're gone, you're amwat, ghayr ahya, as Allah Azza wa Jal says, you're dead, you're not alive. That's why I remember in the Battle of Badr, if I'm not mistaken, Battle of Badr, Rasulullah would be speaking to the dead, and he would tell them, oh you, he would be praising them, oh you who died for the sake of Allah. He would be speaking of them highly, to where the second caliph would come to him, he would tell him, Ya Rasulullah, they're dead, they can't hear you. To where Rasulullah would make a very strong response to him, telling him, you can't hear any better. What is Rasulullah saying? He's saying physically they may be dead, yet you're alive physically. Yet spiritually you're dead. You can't hear any better. Give me a salawat ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. You cannot hear any better. Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam, he gave one, wasn't enough. He had to give the second. Why? Because this philosophy is very clear in the mind of Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. He has digested this understanding. That's why I remember fourth Imam alayhi salam, we say of course one of the reasons because of this philosophy makes sense in the mind of Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. The man was a manifestation of principles, manifestation of philosophies and principles and teachings. Fourth Imam alayhi salam, he says, Rahimallahu ammi al-Abbas. Look at the words of fourth Imam alayhi salam. He says, may Allah have mercy on my uncle Abbas. He goes on to describe how he gave himself for the sake of the Imam alayhi salam. He sacrificed and he did this and he did that. The Imam alayhi salam would describe, until he would say his two arms were given, the Imam ﷺ says along these lines, and Allah gave him two wings in Jannah. Look at how the philosophy manifests. He gave two arms, yet that wasn't enough. In other words, Allah Azza wa Jal compensated Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam with two wings. Allah is saying, you give, I'm going to give you even better. You gave me your arms, O Abbas. You gave yourself for the sake of your brother, O Abbas. Yet two wings are given to you. And the hadith comes and says, just as they were given to Ja'far ibn Abi Talib. And the hadith continues and says that Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam would have a station in Jannah that the shuhada would indeed be hoping to have. That's why we say, oh Abbas, you gave your two arms away for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. Yet how difficult was it for you to fail in bringing water back to Zainab alayhi salam? Must have been difficult for Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. That's why even some books, lines of poetry, they say when Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam was approached by Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he would tell him, let's go back to the camps, let me take you back. He would say no. He would tell him why. He would say for two reasons. Some books have mentioned. He would tell him the first reason is death has come to me. He would tell him the second reason is because I promised Sukayna water. Hussein, for you to expect me to go back to the camps empty-handed, that's not going to happen, Abu Abdullah. I made a promise. It's almost as if Al-Abbas, Qamar al-Ashirah, Qamar Bani Hashim was saying, I'd rather die than go back to the camps without fulfilling the promise which I made. Look at the importance of the promise. You know what one of the Imams, what Imam Sajjad alayhi salam says? He says, if Shimr was to give me the sword of the one he killed my father Hussein with, I would then, he tells us along these lines, I would give it back to him when he requests it. Look at the ahd. He's saying, I made a promise. I promised Sukayna water. Yet Abbas, it must have been difficult for you in these last moments. It's almost as if we can say and feel that there must have been some regret in the heart of Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. Must have been. We propose. I remember when I first went to Karbala and visited the shrine of Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam, I would go next to the shrine and I would hear an elderly man next to me, dressed in the Iraqi style clothing, elderly man. He would be very close to the shrine and he would be speaking to Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam, telling him stuff along the lines of, why Abu Fadl, this was your sister. How could you leave her in such a way, oh Abu Fadl? This was Zainab. This is how you deal with your sister? I heard him telling him things along these lines. This is Zainab, you leave her without anything, without a protector. ليش أبو فاضل? ليش أبو... He would say, why Abu Fadl? Why? The man would say things like that. Wallah, it hurt the heart. Yeah, I'll tell you, Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam, it must have been, I don't blame this man. You know, I say it's sad what he was saying. And I'm pretty sure that his heart had pain in it. Yeah, I say how much pain was in the mind and in the heart of Al-Abbas when he heard the screams of Al-Atash, Al-Atash. The thirst, the thirst. You know, after Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he would come back to the tents and she noticed that he's coming back without Al-Abbas, she would tell him, "Oh Hussein," Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he would initially tell her, عَظَّمَ اللَّهُ لَكِ الْأَجْرِ. He would say, "May Allah reward you. عَظَّمَ اللَّهُ لَكِ الْأَجْرِ. May Allah reward for you the thawab and the ajr and the reward." Why? باستشهاد أخيك أبي الفضل العباس. You know, I can feel that everybody had pain when Al-Abbas alayhi salam, the news was received that he was killed. Yet the heart of Zainab alayhi salam, it must have felt something special. Why? Because these were the hands that brought her from Medina. There was a special relationship between Zainab alayhi salam and Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. These were the hands that brought me from Medina. Do you know what she would want to do? She would want to go to the body of Al-Abbas alayhi salam. Imam al-Hussein would stop her. He would say, "No, O Zainab, no, O Zainab." Zainab alayha salam, she would want to go to the body of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. At this time, she wouldn't go. Yeah, when she was able to do was to pass by the bodies and farewell them one last time. When they were on their way to Sham, she would want to come down from the horse and go to the body of her brother Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. She would come down, she would want to go to the body. She hears a voice telling her, "Amma Zainab, ya irhami dha'fa badani." My Aunt Zainab, have mercy on my weak body. Amma Zainab, irhami qillata hilati. My Aunt Zainab, have mercy on the little strength, the little of my strength. Little strength do I have, O Zainab, qillata hilati. I have very little capabilities, O Zainab, my Aunt Zainab. Zainab alayha salam, she notices this was Zain al-Abidin, Sayyid al-Sajidin. She respects the words of Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam. She would, of her nephew, she would go back onto the camel and she would begin to send her salams to Sayyid al-Shuhada, to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. I remember one alim saying that she saw an older man on the body. She would tell him, "Oh man, what are you doing? Who are you?" She would ask questions in other words towards this man. The man would tell her, "Zainab, why didn't you recognize your grandfather, Rasulullah?" He says that his hair was disheveled, wearing clothes which did not match the greatness of this man. It was Rasulullah telling the body, the bloody body, the beheaded body of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, saying, "Salla alayka malikus sama." The angels of the sky has prayed upon you. What else? قتلوك وما عرفوا من جدك ومن أبوك. They killed you and they didn't know who your grandfather was and your father. They would go on to Sham. Today, let it be a night of Zainab alayhi salam. Yes, the millions are walking to the shrine of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Today, we remember one of the reasons why we walk is why. And some even, they would encourage you to take off your shoes. Feel the rock going into your foot. Why? Because Zainab wasn't in luxury when she was going towards the land of Sham. He says, walk, feel the rocks, feel the cold, feel the pain, feel the heat, whatever it is. Don't feel the comfort, because Zainab didn't have comfort when she was walking to the shrine of to Asham. They would come to fourth Imam, they would tell him what was the worst. Right now, you imagine somebody comes and asks you, what's the worst part of Karbala? Beheading of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Imam would say two words. He would say, Asham, Asham, Sham, Sham. Why, oh Imam? Do you know why? One of the reasons it was so difficult? Because before Karbala, never did ladies from the family of Rasulullah run from tent to tent. You know, sixth Imam alayhi salam, they would burn the house, he would come out, they would see him in a state of sadness, emotional. They would tell him, oh Imam, why do you cry? You're used to your doors being burnt. I send my salams to Fatima Zahra alayha salam on a night like this. He would say, you're used to doors being burnt. Why? He would tell him other things. He would tell him why. He would tell him, I don't cry from the pain. Why do you cry, oh Imam? He says, I cry because when the ladies ran from room to room. What happened to you, 6 Imam? He says, I remembered my aunt Zainab. I remembered, in other words, what does the Imam say? I remembered the ladies running from tent to tent. The lady who in Medina, her shadow wasn't seen. You know, the shadow of Zainab. Al-Hassan on one side, Imam Hussein on another side, Ali ibn Abi Talib on one side, Al-Abbas alayhi salam on another, protecting Zainab alayhi salam. Nights like these, who's overlooking Zainab? Shimr ibn Dhul Jawshan is overlooking Zainab. He says, Asham, Asham, Salamullahi alayki Sayyidati wa Mawlati Zainab. She would go back into the house. He would say, who are you? He would say, are you Zainab al-Hashimiyya? He would say, no. She would tell him, no, call me Zainab al-Masbiyya. Allahu Akbar. One last thing I leave you with is when Zainab alayha salam, she would enter Sham. I say, oh Sayyida Zainab, please don't forget us Yawm al-Qiyamah. These tears coming down from the eyes, O daughter of Ali ibn Abi Talib, please don't forget these tears that have fell for you. On that day when our sins would be like mountains, and may inshaAllah none of us be ones who are avid in the sins that we commit, that day we're gonna need those tears and the actions that were inspired by the character of Zainab alayhi salam. We say, oh Zainab, we haven't forgotten you, and inshaAllah in the grave, till the grave, we don't forget you. Therefore don't forget us, oh Zainab. Zainab alayhi salam, she enters Sham. She turns to one of her relatives. She would tell her, oh, so-and-so, do you know who that is sitting on the throne? She would tell her, no, Sayyidati, I don't know. She would tell her, that is Hind. Who was Hind? Hind was servant in house of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. To the extent that Hind, they say, was of Jewish descent. When Muawiyah heard there is such a lady in the house, he would take her and wedge her to Yazid. Hind goes to Sham. She has no knowledge of what happens in Karbala. First encounter between Hind and Zainab after she would depart, possibly we can say. Zainab alayhi salam, she enters. She tells her, do you know who that is? No, 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 that's Hind. She pass by. She would tell them, they would see that there were dates being thrown, and they would reject these dates from being eaten. Some may have mentioned along these lines. She would be interested. She would say, why aren't these people eating? She would come down. She would say, why don't you people take from this that we are giving you? They would say, sadaqah has been made haram on us. Who are you? She would tell her, we come. Where'd you come from, oh ladies? She would ask her that question at one moment. She would say, we come from Medina. Medina strikes a chord in the heart of Hind. Something happened. Something was activated. Medina? Who do you know in the land of Medina? I know Ali ibn Abi Talib, my father. I know Al-Hussein, my brother. I know this, I know that. She goes on. Memories must have activated in the mind of Hind. She would tell her, do you know these people? She would ask her, she would say, tell me about them. She would be encouraged, and she would be very sincere in knowing what happened to these people. She would say, I ask you one question. Do you know anything about Zainab? There was a lady by the name of Zainab. Hind. She would tell her, can you tell me anything about Zainab? She would tell her, I am Zainab, I am Zainab. Mawlati, Sayyidati, what has happened to you? I say, Allahu Akbar. She didn't recognize this is Zainab. Imagine seeing your father and not recognizing that's your father. Where does this happen? How much must the face of your father change for you not to recognize him? How much must the face of your mother change for you not to recognize her? She would say, I'm sorry, do you know anything about Zainab? She would say, I am Zainab, I am Zainab. What has happened to you, my master Zainab? She would say, this is what Yazid, your husband, has done to us. All of this is because of your husband Yazid. She would send that message very clearly to him. Hind would take a rock, she would bash it on her head, her hijab would fall off, she falls unconscious. She wakes up, goes into the castle of Yazid. She tells him, what have you done, O Yazid, daughters of Rasulullah? She would tell him, what have you done? Great tragedy, daughters of Muhammad. In other words, the Nisa of Rasulullah, what have you done? Yazid, in his arrogance, as some have said, he would tell her, put your hijab back on. Hind would say, you care that I don't have a hijab, while the daughters of Muhammad are left without a hijab. Salamullahi alayki sayyidati ya Zainab. May Allah grant you and I the ziyarah of Zainab. May Allah grant you and I the shafa'ah of Zainab. May Allah grant us to be ones who walk on the path of Zainab alayha salam. With the tears and with the emotions high, raise your hands and may you jeep 3 times. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. أما المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء يا كاشف السوء اكشف السوء عنا يا الله. اللهم شافي كل مريض لا سيما الحاضرين, especially those who are present. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين واخذل الكفر والمنافقين. اللهم احفظ زوار الحسين. Oh Allah, protect the visitors of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. اللهم انصر إسلام المسلمين. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين, and to answer our du'as and to hasten the reappearance of Imam Mahdi Ajalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. We recite the blessed Surah Al-Mubarakah, before it a salawat upon Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.